in terms of your game. Not saying, I just want to be a great basketball player. It's like, nah, what would make your game the most unstoppable? Like, you're the one who sees you when you look in the mirror. You're with you all the time. So pay attention to what pleases you. So if you're a polar bear, that's how you get to where you're swimming around in that ice cold water, man, fucking up seals. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome to this extraordinary episode of the Behind the Whistle podcast. This one has been a long time coming, and I'm super excited for you guys to hear it. I'm your host, Nathan Cross, and today we have a very special guest. Joining me today is the incredible Niyi Sobo. He's a former NFL running back turned entrepreneur who now specializes in coaching professional athletes in their mindset and motivation. In this captivating conversation, find out how Niyi managed to transition from NFL to successful entrepreneur as he shares his powerful philosophy on overcoming negative criticism and adversity, gaining unshakable confidence, regulating emotions, and just becoming an overall high performer. Prepare to be inspired as he reveals the mindset shifts and strategies that he's developed and proven. Without further ado, the biggest guest I've ever had on my podcast, Niyi Sobo. Thanks for being here, man. What I'm gonna do, Niyi, is I'm gonna introduce you separately so that we can maximize time and stuff like that. But thank you so much for being here, man. So I want to kick us straight into it, and I want to know. Usually, I tip off my podcast with a little bit of an icebreaker question. So I want you to give me a number between 1 and 23. And whichever number you land on is going to correspond to a predetermined question.
All right, let's go 11.
11. All right, let me check. All right, so Niyi, what's the strangest or most unexpected pre-game ritual you've seen a teammate perform?
Let me think. Strangest pre-game. All right, I got a couple.
Oh,
it's kind of tie.
I like it.
One was when I was in high school. There was this dude on my team, man, and he used to read this love letter from his girlfriend. So we used to always laugh at him about that. So that's one. And then another dude, man, when I was in the pros, he just would walk around butt naked around the locker room. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that was just a part of his thing. Like, so that was definitely very odd, man. But those two, I would say, is at the top.
That's crazy. I'm so glad you got that question. So man, today, what I'm going to be doing, man, is I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions pertaining to almost for my audience, like they're referees, right? But I would argue personally that referees, as much, if not more than anyone, require the skills that you would refer to as the killer instinct mentality, right? And so some of these questions, they might seem somewhat irrelevant to refereeing specifically. Some of them will be specific to refereeing, but I just want people to know that even though it seems like that, it has everything to do with it because, you know, life's a bit of a mental game. So to kick it off, man, I want to know, when you transitioned from playing in the NFL to starting up I'm Not You, did you go through a bit of an identity crisis, or as some people would refer to as the dark night of the soul? And how did you move through that from going from lost, like your whole identity is wrapped up in NFL, to then finding, you know, regaining your purpose and not slipping into that victim mentality?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, man. And I love football, man. I fell in love with football from about 7th grade. And that was of course a big part of my identity. Like in high school, I made the choice that I wanted to become a pro. I was all in. And I had that good blend of passion towards the sport. And then I just was really driven and very motivated. And so that got me to, got me to college, walked on, got me a scholarship, ultimately went to the pros. And it's funny because I would see people when I was in college, and like there was this one guy on my team I remember, and he had a tattoo of football on his arm. You know what I mean? And I always in my head was like, never felt like football was so much a part of my identity to where it would damage me so much when I didn't have it. So I kind of looked at that guy like, what are you doing type, right? Almost the way you would look at someone who got a girl's name tattooed on their arm.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
So, but fast forward, I get cut from the NFL and trying to get back in the league, and ultimately made the decision to kind of move on. And here I was just heartbroken, you know what I mean? And feeling somewhat empty that I had lost this big part of my identity. So it's kind of ironic that I used to think that, I wasn't going to respond that way, but it hit me hard, So I wouldn't call it, an identity crisis, or I didn't remember what the last time you said. I'd never heard that term.
I read it in a book, actually. It was How to Do the Work by Nicole LePera. She's the holistic psychologist on social media platforms. She referred to it as the dark night of the soul. It's kind of like this depressive phase that you might go through when you're changing, and then there's big change.
Yeah. No, definitely. That's what I went through, So, so the question, man, is, I guess, why didn't that lead into something worse, or how did I transition? For me, there was a couple things, man. Like during that time, I felt like I had good support. You know what I mean? So that's first. Another thing that I always remembered is that I knew, and I now had a template for how to succeed. So, and I didn't forget that. Like I knew that, like consciously, even when I was playing football, I knew that it was going to end at some point and I was going to have to find something different. But during that transitional period, man, I was working at a job that I didn't like. But for me, I just started learning, and that's always what I do whenever I'm in that dark night of the soul, or wherever else you call it. Like I just learn the shit out of everything. You know what I'm saying? Like I take in new information. I latch on to people who resonate with me, so I was in another one of those periods. That's why I got introduced to Robert Greene and his books, and he really resonated with me. Yeah. So I would just listen to his books over and over and over again, because that's sometimes for me the only way to stay afloat. Because if I get lost in my own thoughts, like, I mean, shit, that's when you get depressed. You know what I mean? So, so learning things, man, and then of course attacking the next goal. So post NFL, one of the things that was causing me to be a little bit depressed was that I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. So that was the urgency there, is like figuring out, okay, what it is that I want to do next. And funny enough, the way that I'm Not You was created, it started from football. So I got released from the Saints and I was back home training to get back in the league. And so I wanted to stay around football because I was starting to get a little bitter about football, so I wanted to really connect with my love for football while I was still training. I didn't want to get all salty and shit. So I went to a local high school and decided to volunteer just to coach, right? The freshman team. And so I'm working with these young guys, man, and I'm just developing relationships with them. They're asking me a bunch of questions and shit, and I'm peeping game and realizing that a lot of them are very talented, but they lack a certain mental edge that is required to get to the next level. A lot of them are real soft, crying, making excuses about the coaches and all type of shit that I can't really resonate with, because that's not how I was raised, and that's not how me and my brothers operated, right? So I grew up with three brothers, and so I started taking a couple of these guys to the gym with me to train. So it started off with one. His name was Chance. He was always very interested in working out and all of that. He was a tall wide receiver. So I would take him in my car after practice. He'd come to the gym, train with me. Next thing you know, that turned into 1 and 2 guys coming, right? Fast forward a few weeks later, they're telling everybody in at the school and things, and now it turns into a legit workout group. So we're going like 3 times a week, just taking over the gym, man. It's this really dope gym that's like, it is used to be a firehouse, actually, this gym. So it's like real big warehouse and music and all of that. So we just take over the gym, just playing hella rap music and shit, and just doing all sorts of workouts. And what that turned into is people around the gym looking and saying, oh man, like, would you train me? And so next thing you know, I turn into a trainer, even though that's not really what I decide, like what I wanted to do. But I decided to take that opportunity. Then over time, I got a nice stable of clients that I'm working with.
Yep.
And as I'm working with these clients, I'm realizing I don't really love the training aspect. Of course, I train because I'm an athlete, but I'm not the guy like looking up like physiology and squat technique and all that type of shit. That just really didn't get me going. And I was also realizing in working with these athletes, again, they lacked the mental edge required even to just get the most out of their workouts. Cause I'm like, it's one thing to work out and shit, but you're not a killer though. Like you don't really know how to get the most out of this shit. You're not approaching this the way that's necessary in order to really succeed when it comes time to do that. So I started developing a mindset curriculum, right? And I started implementing it with my clients. And one client, she was a eighth grader at the time. She was a softball. She's a softball player. She's actually in college now playing softball. And I would take her and her dad in the back room and I would break down these lessons, these mindset lessons, right? And I would make them very practical because that's how I am. I'm a practical type of dude. I'm not someone who's just going to be talking all type of shit. So I would lay out these things and start having her do them, right? And her dad was very heavily involved in her career, so he was going to keep her accountable. And just started seeing that progress. Then over time, man, I just decided, man, like I need to create a brand out of this. And this was at a time where podcasts were out, but it wasn't really like popping like it was now. And there was really no one occupying the space. You know what I mean? So I said, let me just go ahead and dive in. That's how I'm Not You was built. So it was created from that momentum and that desire that came from that dark night of the soul. You know what I mean? Where I had that uncertainty. But because I just was just making moves, just the decision to stay around the game, right? Go and ask if I can volunteer, taking them to work out with me. Then that turned into these groups. Then that turned into this. And then that just sort of evolved. I would have never guessed that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, but that's how it happens.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. So it's almost like you just kept putting one foot in front of the other and just kind of accepting the fact that you didn't really know, but every step you took got you one step closer. And that was a more active approach rather than kind of sitting back in that kind of woe is me kind of situation.
Exactly.
Which never really helps anyone. Yeah, that's crazy, man. And you mentioned Robert Greene earlier, and I've got a question relating to something that Robert Greene talks about. And you would know as much as anyone that he talks about something in one of his books called The Dark Side. And I want to know, this might hit you hard, or it might not, I don't know. But I want to know, are you aware of your dark side, and what is the dark side that's driving you to stay motivated to work so hard? Because you're like, every time I see you, man, you're on the grind, you're locked in, and I'm like, man, what's motivating this dude? And so maybe dig into that a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, no, the dark side is an interesting concept, and it's one of those things it's not like a physical thing, obviously. So it's really us trying to describe something that's unseen. So the way that I understand it is the dark side is pretty much just like a collection of your motivations and aspects of who you are and your personality type, your inclinations, the things you don't like, the things you like, that are underneath the surface. You see what I'm saying? So we have like the things that are on the surface, but then we have what's underneath the surface, right? And the things that are underneath the surface are the things that we sort of suppress unconsciously. For example, I have always been I was the third out of four boys. All right. So I'll give you kind of a little sample of my dark side. And to answer your question about, do I know my dark side? I, just like anybody else, is constantly becoming more and more aware of my dark side, because you'll never fully know. It's unconscious, right? So, but I was third of four boys. All three of my brothers were very extroverted. I was very introverted. I was very quiet, considered even shy. My dad came here from Nigeria. All he cared about was good grades and Christianity. That's the only two things that he cared about. So, and of course, behaving properly. So if you didn't behave properly, that was a bad reflection on him, the family. He wasn't pleased. So I was not pleasing him in at least two of those categories coming up. One of them was just my behavior. I just wasn't as well behaved in school. I wasn't getting good grades either. And I say good grades, relatively speaking. All my brothers are like 4.0 students. You know what I mean? So I was like a C plus student, and I just didn't, the school game just never resonated with me. And I had a hard time with that. And so he expressed his distaste in my behavior and the fact that he was not pleasing with me. He let me know that, you know what I mean? And my dad didn't mince words when it came to that. And he also didn't dole out a lot of positive reinforcement either. Barely ever touches. I can't even remember getting a hug or a kiss from my dad at all, right? So naturally, that's going to affect me as a child, right?
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, he told me something that really, really hurt me. And it was at that point that I decided I was no longer going to try to play the game of trying to please my dad, right? Now, I didn't know this, but I still was trying to please my dad, even by doing the different things that that I then went to do, right? Going all in football. So that was a real big motivator for me, and still to this day is. Like, still to this day, there's like, my family's coming in town this week, and I got a whole bunch of anxiety because I still feel like the black sheep in my fam. I still feel like I haven't lived up to certain standards that my dad values. I'm the only one of my brothers that's no longer a Christian. I'm now going through a divorce as well. So now I'm going to be the only one who's going through a divorce, this and that. So I kind of always feel like the outsider. Now, that dark side, me feeling like the outsider, I've also taken pride in that as well, which is what led me to create a brand called I'm Not You, where I'm actually celebrating the fact that I'm not you. You see what I'm saying? And actually doubling down on those things. So that's an example of something that's a part of who I am. You can never erase that.
Yep.
No amount of therapy, no amount of anything is going to erase what happened. Now, what I can do is come to terms with the realities of my past, do my best to understand how I responded, because the way that I responded was for survival. I had to do that, right? Anybody who's gone through any sort of thing and even people who learn to lie or be deceitful, wherever they had to learn that at some point in order to survive. Now, at some point in our lives, we have to modify our responses to things because we can realize we're no longer in danger anymore, right? But that only comes through being aware and actually accepting and appreciating the fact that that's how you are, right? But you can't do any of that if you don't become aware of how you are. And if you don't become aware of what's actually happened. So a big part of understanding your dark side is spending time reflecting and trying to understand who you are genuinely, right? Like, understand who you are. And Robert Greene again talks about this. He's like, you're a mystery to yourself. Like, we don't know ourselves. We don't know the first thing about ourselves. And that, you might say, well, yeah, I do. But the point is, you want to have the mindset that you don't understand yourself. Because if you realize you don't understand yourself, you're going to be constantly trying to learn yourself. And there's so much to learn. And the more you learn, the more layers get peeled back, the more nuances you can understand. And then you could actually start positioning yourself in a way where you can take advantage of opportunities that's been given to you. You can start putting yourself in positions where you can succeed based on your understanding of who you are. For example, I've also always been someone who's very independent. I've loved being alone, right? So when I was coming up, much like everybody else, you go get a job and you have a career and this and this and that. I learned through pain. Now, I'm not built for working in jobs and corporations and all that type of shit. I got a job as a firefighter, and I really quickly realized, like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. You know what I'm saying? So now, I'm not saying everybody is that way. Some people are built, based on their personality type, based on how they are. My lifestyle, right, from homeschooling my children to having my own business, that suits me based on my nature. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like if you take a polar bear, you know what I mean, and put him in a tropical environment, that doesn't suit his nature, right? Yeah. But if a polar bear is not aware of who he is, and if he doesn't accept, like, damn, man, like, I got this thick ass, white fur, you know what I mean? I like to swim in freezing cold water. I need to eat seals. If he doesn't understand that and accept that's what he needs, he won't even be aware. He won't even know what's wrong. So most people are in situations, in relationships that they don't even belong in, and they don't feel good, but they don't have no idea why they don't feel good because they haven't taken time to actually ask themselves, like, who am I? Like, what is it that I want? What are the aspects of my personality that I've been suppressing and why? You see what I'm saying? Why have I been suppressing those? And then once you start to come to terms with that, then you start peeling back those layers. Then you start making moves and you actually start to, and I think that's really the key to quote unquote fulfillment. I won't say happiness, but being fulfilled, actually feeling like you're being who you are. The way a polar bear probably feels when he's swimming in ice cold water, you know what I'm saying? Snacking on, seal steaks, you know what I'm saying? Like, he feels good. He's like, damn, I don't know how to explain it, but this just feels right. Just like an eagle flying in the sky. If you got an eagle, if you put an eagle in a place where there's a ceiling, he's like, what the fuck is this? Like, but he won't know. If he's never actually flown, like, full out, like, experience soaring in the sky, he will feel like something's wrong, but he won't even know what's wrong.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's Dark Side, man. And anybody want to know more about that, there's a couple books I recommend. Number one, Relentless by Tim Grover. I think that he does a great job of explaining the dark side, especially from an athletic standpoint. And then, of course, Robert Greene in his book, Laws of Human Nature. He has a whole chapter on it. It's next level, man. That whole book just fucked me up in a good way, you know what I'm saying? But also in a bad way, because once you start to understand yourself more, it's hard because there's some things that are not flattering. You know what I mean? There's some things that we've been suppressing for a reason because we don't want other people to see this shit about us. But again, it starts with that awareness.
Sorry for the interruption. Please just give me 30 seconds of your time. I do know it's valuable. I just need to let you know two things. First, I'm so grateful for each and every one of you who engages with my content and the podcast. It's something that I've always wanted to do, and I just know intuitively that it does have the opportunity to be something super special. At the moment, I'm just one kid investing a lot of time and energy into something I believe in. I'm not getting any income from this, and if I was doing this just for myself or for money, I'd have quit a long time ago. It really does have you in mind, and I don't know, you tell me if you've been getting any value. There is one thing I would like to ask you to do for me. I'm hungry, and so I want to know if you'd be opposed to throwing me a bone. But my bone, it comes in the form of a subscribe to Behind the Whistle everywhere you consume it, including YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, etc. And heck, if you want to give me the whole damn cow, I'd literally be over the moon to see some reviews, some shares, and I will personally thank each person who does this. I promise to keep doing my best so that the love comes all the way back around to you in the future. Thank you. Let's get back to the episode. Man, I cannot get over how your analogies, man, they are undefeated forever. I love your analogies. Whenever I'm listening to your podcast, man, you pull out some wild analogies. And I gotta say, man, they get me. So, the next part to this is kind of associated. You said that you were driven by trying to please your dad for some time, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what allowed you to, or that was a fuel that you used to motivate you to reach bigger goals, like hitting the NFL and things like that. And that was subconscious, right? And you said that you've not necessarily like fully resolved, like you said that's still a part of you, but I can see that because you've now acknowledged that and you can kind of move past that. Do you feel like you're still being driven more by the pain side of things, by the negative, by the insecurity, by the doubts, and things like that? Or do you feel like your motivations have shifted over the years? Because I find in myself and in a lot of high performers, a lot of them, and in myself, I'll just talk about myself so as not to, project here. But like, I know a lot of my achievements and things have come from this quote unquote negative fuel, the insecurity, the trying to prove people, etc.
Right.
And I know that that's a powerful fuel, but not necessarily the most sustainable one. A long term, particularly if you want to live a fulfilled and happy life and you don't want to always be chasing the imaginary unicorns around the place and
Right.
pushing people away. So I guess I'm getting a bit off here, but do you kind of understand the question I'm after? What are you motivated by now? What's the scale between pain and pleasure that you're driving
Yeah.
towards? Yeah.
No, that's a great question, man. And I will so remember I told you when I was in high school and I had that, that interaction with my dad where I kind of, and it wasn't a conscious decision. I remember I was crying. He dropped me off at school and I went to the computer lab. I was back when Napster and LimeWire was out. I used to always go to the computer lab and download new music and burn CDs.
Yep.
But I went to the computer lab, man. I was crying, was in the bathroom trying to wipe my tears and shit. So it wasn't like I made this conscious decision, but I got angry after that because I never liked to cry and kind of be like vulnerable in that way. So I was like, fuck that. You know what I mean? Like, fuck that. And that's where I got on my kind of fuck the world mentality, if you will. Now again, I thought that I was, oh, I don't care what my dad thinks, but I still did. And I was actually trying to find something that would please him, right? And it was funny because even when I made it to the NFL, he didn't really seem to care about that. Like, he didn't really care about that type of stuff. All he cared about was the type of school you went to. I had two brothers who went to Stanford, right? So he would brag about, in front of me, he would brag to other people about how his sons were going to Stanford, while but wouldn't say anything about me, right? So, and that always made me feel salty. So I got fast forward, post NFL, I'm in that period of time where I'm working at this factory job, trying to figure my shit out. And all my brothers come in town and, there's this big kind of emotional flare up, with my dad and my brothers and this and that. And I remember I was prompted to tell my dad how I felt, which I never did. I never, tried to express myself to him, whatever. And I did. And I broke down crying and telling him I just wanted to make him happy and this and that. And my dad just sat there. He didn't do anything. He didn't show no emotion. He didn't come up and hug me or nothing. Or, like in the movies, it was like crickets, man. And so here I was sitting there just totally vulnerable, exposing myself. And he just didn't do nothing. He didn't seem to care at all. Now, that was the point where I realized there's got to be, this, like you said, this is not sustainable. You see what I'm saying? Because I realized even through letting all that emotion out that I never had let out, how much I was bottling up. And then I that just didn't feel good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that was another kind of turning point for me where naturally now my motivations need to evolve because I really knew at that point, there's no making my dad happy. That was when I really smartened up. It's just no. And sometimes we come to that, we see like whether it's a boss or a partner in a relationship who's just always complaining, talking shit. You realize after a lot of effort, sometimes, way too long, man, this person's going to be unhappy forever. There's no pleasing this person. Because I would look at my brothers and even them doing this and they feel the same ways as me. You know what I mean? So that was when I said, okay, something's got to shift. Now, the reality is I'm still wired that way. I still have that me against the world mentality. And I don't really feel motivations is like this linear equation of 60-40 or whatever else, right? Because we're all driven by pain, everyone. And we all go towards pleasure. Now, I will say that my motivations have evolved, right? And here's one of the main ways that they've evolved. And I really enjoy this. I've become a lot more concerned about what I actually believe and feel about myself. You see what I'm saying? Like, I still, like everyone, like every human, care about how I'm viewed. I care about people's opinions of me. But I've become over time way more interested in what I actually believe and feel about myself. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's been something that is, like I said, I enjoy because it's more immediate. Number one, you can gauge it faster. Like with other people's opinions, we kind of never really know. I can sit up here and wonder what you're thinking or wonder what this person's thinking, but I'll never really know. But I can look at myself in the mirror and ask myself, what do I think? You know what I mean? Like, what do I think about what I just said or did? And what do I believe is right? What do I believe is right? Not what does my dad believe is right or what do my brothers believe is right? Because I know what they believe is right. But I've already tried doing what they believe is right. And I didn't like that feeling. You see what I'm saying? So why don't I figure out what I believe is right? And you know this because you've gone through Killer Instinct. That's a big part of having that killer instinct, is knowing what you want. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you like? What is your standard? Do you see what I'm saying? Because I always introduce the I'm not you philosophy, but I like, what do you believe? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think is true? What is your standard on this, and this? Like, for example, some athletes, when they travel, they find it's like when they travel or they go on vacations and they're like, man, I don't know, should I take days off? Well, what do you, how do you feel when during Christmas time, you don't get your shots up? How do you actually feel? Because you need to gauge that with yourself. Never mind what I think. You know what I'm saying? So a big part, and again, it's more immediate, and you feel better as you start to please yourself. When you live in alignment, that's what really being in alignment is. It was like you're living up to your own standards. You know what I mean? And when you're focusing more on that, naturally you focus less on what other people are thinking. You know, even when it comes to creating content and shit like that, man, like, and this is why you got to respect anybody who creative or puts anybody really who has a business or a restaurant or a podcast or whatever. They're basically saying, this is what I like. This is what I think is cool. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
And it was this Lil Wayne quote, and I love Lil Wayne, man. He was like, I think that what I do is cool. And if you think that what I do is not cool, you're not cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't make shit, and this is Lil Wayne's philosophy, right? He's like, I don't make shit for you. I make shit because I think it's cool. So if you think it's cool, then that's why you fuck with me, because you think it's cool too. If you don't think it's cool, I think you're not cool. You know what I mean? So, and that's just the way to live, man, because there's too many people who everybody's got opinions. So you spend all this time trying to please other people, man, you're going to be, good luck. You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, so if you spend more time trying to make yourself happy, so I am driven a lot by pain. And a lot of it is like, man, I don't like the way I feel when I do X, Y, and Z. You know, I don't like the way that I like the way that I feel when I do this. You know, I like this part about me. So I'm going to work hard to generate a lifestyle around this principle, as opposed to, well, I wonder if other people think, and I wonder what people are going to say. It's just less time to think about that when you're focusing more on pleasing yourself.
Yeah, man. Wow, I love that, bro, because it pretty much answers so many questions, man. That you could put so many things that people that I want to ask, that I want to know, and put it in that little box right there, and it kind of fixes a lot of things, just knowing that in itself. So you've almost answered this one here just now, but I want to know if you want to add anything or elaborate or anything. You might not want to, which is cool, but as you could probably imagine, referees, right? We face a whole lot of scrutiny. There's criticism, there's negative feedback. It's so prevalent, man, and there's a lot of hate that we cop, because, you know, we're out here trying to officiate a game, and there's two sides, and one side's always going to be losing, and there's people's emotions, and everything's, you know, bundled up into this game. And, you know, as a referee, you cop a lot of this, and sometimes that hits too hard for a lot of referees, and they struggle to deal with this negative feedback, this criticism. Would you say that dealing with this and resolving this is, again, kind of what you just said, in terms of just knowing yourself and not giving too much power to other people's opinions based on that? Or is there anything else that you would add to that in terms of reframing people's opinions or the situation or anything like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I'm glad you asked that question as well, because I think in the age of social media, man, it's crazy, man. Social media is funny because of this. A lot of what we see on social media, we actually think it's real. You see what I'm saying? Like for example, a referee could go on social media, let's say an NBA ref, goes on social media after a game, and you'll see all this shit about the ref. And all it is people typing shit on a computer. Do you see what I'm saying? So even it always bugs me out when people are like, this person's receiving death threats. Now, that's not to diminish a death threat, right? But when's the last time you actually heard of somebody dying based off sports? I don't know. I haven't heard any in the past, because I'm sure I would have heard of it. Like if it a player missed the game-winning shot and he was found murdered in his hometown. I don't hear those type of stories. What we do hear is, death threats and whatever. All it is people typing shit on the internet. So I'm saying that because another thing that happens with social media is everybody wants to be heard. And everybody likes having people feel sorry for them. You see what I'm saying? So you hear players talking, crying and shit like, the Players Association and the owners aren't paying enough this. You got owners and shit talking shit. You got fans being like, players make too much money. Now you got referees talking about, it's so hard. And it's hard for everybody. Everybody's getting scrutiny. So anybody who's being seen is getting scrutiny. So I would tell a referee, stop comparing the amount of scrutiny you get to whoever else. Everybody's getting shit. You know what I'm saying? So the people who work in factories are getting shit when they go into work, and people treating them bad, like the bosses or whatever. So there's no value, and Pat Riley talks about this, man. Like, sympathy is like candy. It's no nutritional value to that. It's literally like a Starburst or some shit. There's nobody who would try to convince you that a Starburst is good for you. It's empty calories. It's sugar. There's nothing positive that comes from it other than the immediate pleasure that you get from it. So, since we're talking to referees here, stop eating the Starburst, man. Stop eating candy. Like, stop worrying about, it's so hard and shit like that. Nobody gives a fuck, especially about referees. You see what I'm saying? And that's no disrespect. That's a fact. Nobody gives a fuck. You're not out there playing. All your job is to facilitate the game and make sure the shit don't go out of hand and reinforce the rules. You see what I'm saying? It's just like punters and shit in football. Nobody gives a fuck about punters like that. All you got to do is punt the ball, make sure the ball goes in there. Kicker, you kick the shit through the hole. You ain't a running back. You're not a quarterback. You damn sure ain't no defensive back or nothing like that. You got a very simple job. All you need to do is do that shit.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, then you shouldn't be a referee. So I would be curious with any referees. You got to know your motivations. Why do you do it? If you don't like scrutiny, then you probably shouldn't be an NBA ref. If you don't like people screaming at you, then you probably shouldn't be refereeing. You should do you should get into another line of work. So I just want to say that off top. You see what I'm saying? Because then now that shifts your mindset as a referee. You're no longer crying about and worrying about what people are going to say to you. Like, people are saying shit. They're going to talk shit. They're supposed to. They're fans. Fan is short for fanatic. They're fanatics. They're emotional, many times drunk. They love their team. So yeah, if you call a call that goes against them, their team loses, they're going to hate you. You see what I'm saying? Now, what does hating mean? They're going to type shit on the internet about you. Now, if they I don't know, man. I don't know how deep this shit gets with refs, and maybe they need to take it up with the PA, with the Players Association or the Refs Association, and maybe you need to get paid more if your life is really on the line or some shit. But let's assume it's not. So from there, then it goes like this. And by the way, this is the same thing I would say to anybody. This is the same thing I would say to quarterbacks of the NFL. Like, nobody gives a fuck. You the highest paid player on the team. So yeah, a lot rides on it. That's why you get paid the most. You know what I mean? And you get all of the credit. You also get all of the blame. That's what you signed up for. If you don't like it, then go do something else. You know what I'm saying? So the next thing is for a ref is to become obsessed with understanding and knowing the rules of the game. If you're studying, just like a quarterback, if a quarterback is so aware of, how hard the shit is and this and this and that, you obviously not spending enough time watching film. You shouldn't even have time for this shit. A quarterback shouldn't even have time to be getting on social media when you got a fucking game on Sunday. You see what I'm saying? And the ref is the same thing. You're aware. Yeah, it's a lot riding on these games, right? So you better know the fucking rules. So don't be a bad referee. If you know the rules, you're probably not going to be a horrible referee. Is that fair to say?
Facts. Yeah.
Like if you know the rules, if you study the shit.
It's like anything, right? Man. Yeah. It's like anyone who's working on something big. Like, if you want to be good at it, you work at it. And there's a certain amount of influence you have over how high a standard you have in what you do. and how much pride you take in that. And people see that, like, even if you don't have a knack for it, like if you literally go home and you're working on your craft, like you're going to be at least above average because hard work beats talent, you know?
Exactly. And just like in any realm of anything, there are people, there's the cream of the crop, there's the few who take a lot of pride, and then there's the rest, and then there's the few who are just bums. So just commit yourself to knowing the rules, man. Study the shit. Like, watch film. Like I watch, I don't know, man. This NBA shit, I don't know. But there are some refs where it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? But that's like with anything. Sometimes you watch your favorite basketball team and be like, man, who is this bum? You know what I'm saying? On your team. Like you step your game up, basically, right? So know the rules. Now, after that, right, and this is key, because I'm sure with refereeing, just like with anything, you have a certain slant. Like, you're a human, so you guys are not robots. So naturally, you have an idea. So you referee basketball, right? So you have an idea about how the game of basketball should be played. Am I right?
Right.
That means you, as a referee, you're not a machine. You have a philosophy. So that means there are certain fouls you're going to call, certain fouls you're going to not. Let's say if you're a shooter, you might be like, hey, man, we got to protect these shooters. You know what I'm saying? Let's say if you're a big man, you know, and you're a referee, you might be a little bit less likely to call certain fouls on certain shots. You need to know what your philosophy is and really have that written and established and understand the story and the why behind it, so that you can then enter a game with confidence. You see what I'm saying? What you don't want to do is be a ref that, you know, knows the rules, but then you're very insecure about, and you're like allowing the crowd to sway you. You're allowing certain players to come up and talk shit to you, like a Steph Curry. Right? Let's say Steph Curry, he's not really a shit talker like that to refs, but let's say I don't know, like a James Harden or something. And if you don't know what your philosophy is, and James Harden is in your ear talking shit, now you're gonna start switching it up because of what he's saying. But if you actually know what your philosophy is, you'll be like, hey, I don't give a fuck what you talking about. So if that happens again, you know what's up. You know what I mean? Like, and that's boom, right? And then the last thing I'm gonna say is, this is just my opinion. This is just I'm a fan of basketball. You know?
Yeah, let's go.
There's somebody in Killer Instinct who's an NBA ref as well, man. He comes when they come to Portland, he always gets me tickets and shit. So I do pay attention a little bit to refs. Hold on, I just lost my thought. Oh, this. And again, this is just my opinion. I don't know how the NBA coaches on this. I don't know how but at the end of the day, man, I'm sitting here watching, right? And I'm watching these players literally disrespect these referees, dog. And I'm like, I could never allow another man to just talk to me like that, especially on TV. Now, again, I'm sure maybe the NBA has some sort of... So I would just say, man, as a referee, just like with any person, you know what I'm saying? And I was going to say as a man, but I know there's probably some women referees. So whoever you are, man, know what your threshold is in terms of disrespect. Because I imagine there's certain refs who probably allow certain things where others don't. And at the end of the day, a ref could throw that out whenever they feel like it, meaning like if that's what it is.
It's true.
So have that standard, man, and don't waver from that. Let these motherfuckers know you're not going to be disrespecting me. Because again, I watch that and sometimes I feel awkward. I feel embarrassed for the players, number one, that they're disrespecting the refs that hard. And I also feel embarrassed for the refs that they're allowing themselves to get disrespected that hard. I'm like, how are you going to let this dude sit over and talk to you like that and not even throw out a T? You know what I'm saying? I would literally look at dude and be like, hey, it's the last time I'm going to tell you. If you talk to me like that again, you out of here. So go ahead. That's all I'm going to say. And then if he does it again, he's out of there.
Yeah.
Because players can talk. They're not going to put hands on you. You know what I'm saying? And again, let the referees association handle you and whatever you did. But I think there's something to be said about referees saying, nah, we are a part of the game, because you are. And I know just a second ago it sounded like I kind of diminished you a little bit, right? But no, you're a part of the game. You're an important part of the game. Because if there was no referees, then we'd just be playing pickup ball and then guys would be calling foul themselves.
Yeah.
So referees are important. They play an important part of the game. They're not robots. So just like players, some shots are going to be missed. Some are going to be made. Now the margins for error, right, is a little smaller for a ref, I think, because your job's not as hard, but it's still hard. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's still difficult. So you need to be respected in that way. So I would say, man, like firm up a little bit, you know, to any ref, like, and make sure that you don't allow yourself to get disrespected. And if you are, take that shit up with Adam Silver, man. Be like, listen, all the refs can come together. Be like, nah, I don't think that players should be cursing us out. I see what Draymond. I'm like, how you let this dude talk? He literally cursing you out. You know, refs are an authority figure. You know what I'm saying? And for them to get disrespected like that, I think it's, as a fan, I watch it and I get uncomfortable with it. And I don't see the same thing in football, by the way. I don't.
Right.
Like I think that football refs, something different about the sport, because I don't see players talking that level of shit to the football refs.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. So that's the last thing I would say.
Nah, that's great, man. And I guess reflecting on what you said, the biggest takeaways I got from that is almost like, to summarize a bit, directed at the question, is almost like, first things first, like acknowledge the reality. I think that's important. The reality is you will, you know, there's a certain level of scrutiny that you're going to receive just by virtue of being a ref. And then if that reality is too much for you and you have to set a boundary, then set the boundary. I think that's, I mean, they're two good things that I kind of took away from that, which was really helpful, man. And so let's say, man, so let's look at almost the role of regulating emotions in all of this, right? Because say as a referee, you know, some tend to sink, others tend to swim, and there's a lot of referees struggling with these mental ailments because of the demands that are placed upon them as a referee. And yeah, you know, you could say, oh, you could walk away from it. Maybe there's some sort of toxic attachment there or something like that to the abuse. But I think there's a certain level of emotional regulation that people need to have, because you're going to have failures, you're going to have bad games, whether you're a referee or a player. And sometimes this affects people's confidence, self-esteem, and it kind of ripples out into all areas of their life. And so I'm finding people are struggling to overcome these setbacks, these failures. And I kind of want to know, how do we regulate ourselves emotionally in order to get back on track? It's pretty much, I'm pretty much asking you about resilience here, but from an emotional standpoint.
Okay, good. I'm gonna break this shit down, all right? And so I'm gonna write as I do this, because this is a good question.
Love it.
So
thank you.
The first thing that we have to understand is that when we talk about emotional regulation, a lot of people look for some sort of tool, right? Or like, oh, you know, breathing techniques or meditation. And in this day and age, all the referees know all of that shit. And some of them maybe even been doing it, but they're still not able to emotionally regulate. So the reality is your emotions and the way that you respond to situations, there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. And it's not, the way that you're responding is not just because you're not doing Wim Hof breathing before the game. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's not the reason why you're responding that way. So because of that, that doesn't mean just because you start doing Wim Hof breathing, now all of a sudden things are going to change. Now that is a part of it, right? And having these strategies and techniques are a part of it. But let's kind of take a step back and build a foundation for your life that allows you to move through life with confidence under pressure. You see what I'm saying? So the first thing for a ref, and I'm gonna make this very specific to refs, right? So let's address the mindset really quick first. And one thing is, again, a lot of times we say things like, oh, you know, like you just said it, right? Like referees are struggling with mental health, whatever. Everybody's struggling with mental health. Fill in the blank. Factory workers are struggling with mental health. NBA basketball players are struggling with mental health. They're fucking multimillionaires. NFL quarterbacks struggling with mental health. Stay-at-home mothers struggling with mental health. Working mothers struggling with mental health. Teens, they just announced in the US, there's a teen mental health crisis. Everybody's struggling with mental health. So I say that because our tendency sometimes is to exaggerate the shit we're going through, and that gives us some sort of sense of significance. What I want people to do is kind of, I don't want to say downplay it, because we're not downplaying it. It's still very important. But universalize this situation, man. Realize everybody, we're all in the same boat. It doesn't matter if you're a referee. It doesn't matter. Fans are struggling with emotional regulation and shit. You know what I'm saying? And mental health.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing to remind ourselves of, because then we can kind of deal with the problem instead of create narratives that really don't help us. You know what I mean? But I understand what you were saying, by the way. But this is to the ref.
This is good. Right? Yeah.
So the first thing, man, is this. And let's make it specific towards refereeing, and then I'm going to do some lifestyle things as well.
Love it.
Just so the first thing is, you need, as a referee, this is one of the best things you can do for your mental health and being able to be resilient, is you need to know what your standards are, right? And when I say standards, I mean your output, like the output, what I call action KPIs, as well as your result KPIs. AKA, you need to be evaluating yourself according to your standards after every time you perform. Does that make sense? So instead of going to Twitter to see what people are saying about you or waiting for the fans to react to you, you need to be evaluating your own self according to your own standards. Now, the problem is a lot of refs, a lot of fill in the blank, factory workers, basketball players, they don't have their own standards. They're waiting on external validation. So they don't even know how to validate themselves. Their own validation is dependent upon what people are saying to them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You look at the best basketball players in the league. Do you see Steph Curry when he shoots? Does he look at the crowd and be like, guys, did I make it or not? No, he got his own routine. I don't give a fuck if it's a million people in there, or if it's one, or it's zero, or if it's mice running around. He's doing the same shit. That's how because he has his own standards. So a referee, you need to create your own standards. You need to know how to evaluate yourself after a game. You need to be able to sit down in the locker room, take out your pen and pad. You should have a fucking spreadsheet and all of that. You know this is what I teach in Killer Instinct. You need to have that shit laid out, and you need to be evaluating yourself. Okay, how was my conditioning? Let's say, okay, how did I feel during this? Are there any emotional triggers that came up? How did I perform in this way? And you need to be able to create and clarify how to evaluate yourself. How many fouls did I call today? How many texts did I call today? And again, you guys know better than I do, right? But you need to know better than I do. Because if you don't know how to evaluate yourself, then you're no different than me, and I'm not even a ref. So you as a referee need to be a master on what it takes to be a referee. Any referee, high-level referee, that's why players, and they don't always make great coaches necessarily, but they know a lot about the game. You see what I'm saying? Like, so because they played the game, so naturally they know it because they do it, right? So that's the first thing, because what that's going to do is get you focused more on pleasing yourself. So that way, if you had a good game, and you had a good game according to how you evaluate it, you can go home and sleep well at night knowing that people just on Twitter talking shit. If you had a bad game, you now have put it in your control to improve upon that, right? And that's the next thing. You need to be training. You need to have a training routine and a training ritual outside of what's demanded of you from your team. But if you play on a team and all you do is what the coach tells you to do, you're probably not going to be great. But if you want to be great, you need to do more on top of what the team does. You see, does that make sense? Especially if you don't have talent.
100%.
Now, but again, we don't think rationally in that way sometimes. We just think that, just because you're a ref and you show up and you do your job. No, that's not enough. You want to be a great ref, right? And I'm assuming that. Let's also make that assumption that you actually have a vision for what type of referee you want to be and what type of impact you want to have on a game. We'll add that as well. But you need to have a training routine and a training ritual that's broken down by the day and the hour in terms of activities, tasks, metrics. For example, you look at Kobe and you study what he did in the offseason. Was he like, I just try to get some shots up? No, it's 1,000 makes a day. 1,000 makes a day. You see how we did. So now, like that's clear. So for a referee, are you in impeccable shape? I'm talking about to the point where Because what happens when we get tired is we get more prone to emotional breakdowns. Anybody. That's why a referee needs to be in fucking world-class basketball player shape. A referee should be running around like Steph Curry and not breathing. You know what I'm saying? That's why Steph Curry could do what he does. Now, do all are referees like that? Do they approach it? I don't know. But I gotta imagine a lot don't. So that's just one part of your training routine, though. And then the other parts, watching film, studying, whatever. I don't know what referees do, but you need to know because you're a referee, right? So, and again, I'm talking to referees, not necessarily you, but It is you as well. So be able to evaluate yourself. Have a training ritual. By the way, think about this. If a referee had those two things, do you think that they're going to struggle with mental health and mental illness with stuff surrounding their job? Already they're going to be affecting their job as well as opposed to the job affecting them. Does that make sense? Like, it's like they're going to be applying the pressure to their craft, not the craft applying pressure to them.
Yup.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and that's what it means to have that killer instinct. Killer instinct is about you taking control. It's you have control over every aspect of things that are in the realm of what your jungle is. You see what I'm saying? Like, in order to be the king of your jungle, you need to know all the lay of the land. Everything needs to be under your control. You see what I'm saying? If we talk about a lion, right? And I don't think this is like an actual definition, but when you think about the let's look at the top of the food chain. That basically means, and again, if you're a biologist, correct me if I'm wrong. This is just my common sense kind of outside evaluation. You're saying, like say a shark, like a great white shark is the king of their jungle, right? It's basically like, can't nobody fuck with me. Nobody's fucking with me. So a little tiger shark, you ain't fucking with me. A whale, you ain't fucking with me. You can't kill me. You can't eat me. You know what I'm saying? I eat you. You should control over everything. Same thing with a lion or whoever else. It's basically the apex predator. I'm the one affecting this shit, not the other way around. I'm not running from shit. You running from me. You see what I'm saying? So that's how anybody needs to be approaching their shit. So a referee because when these two things right here, whoever's listening, you're probably thinking like, damn, well, how do I do that? Exactly. You need to be worried about that, not what people are saying about you on Twitter. You know how to become obsessed with how to create a training routine, with how to evaluate yourself, improving your evaluation system, actually implementing the things that you learned and that you're putting into place. And I guarantee you're not going to be worrying about what the fuck anybody else is saying about you. And those are just two things I mentioned. So let's now take a step back, see what else. All right. So those things just need to be in place. Now, on top of that, right, what you need to have is morning and evening routines, how you start your day, how you end your day. And these routines need to do a few things for you. Number one, they need to get you started off, let's say with your morning routine, winning. You need to create a pattern of winning because you're going to take L's. You're going to make bad calls. But if you have a morning routine, even with something as simple as making your bed, doing 20 push-ups, saying hello to your kids, shit that you do every single morning, you're going to feel like you're winning. You're going to create a pattern of winning. So even though you just fucked around and messed up game 7 of the NBA finals, you still can win every morning. Now, I know it doesn't compare, but you've created a pattern of winning, right? So that's what your routines need to do. Also, what your routines need to do is calm you and give you perspective. For example, let's say someone's religious. Most likely what they do at night is they pray. What does praying do? Praying is an acknowledgement of some power that's so much greater than you. And if you're praying every day to your God, you automatically see, oh man, like say you're a referee and you fucked up or you gave somebody a technical because you got emotional. Now you see perspective already. God don't care about that. You know what I mean? Like now you get perspective. You spend, when you hug your kids, you think like that's way more important than whatever. Now, if you make that a part of your nightly and morning routines, those things are going to protect you against every day. Now, if you make it every single day, You see what I'm saying? If you approach your morning and PM routines in that way, now you're bulletproofing yourself to a lot of this shit that, a lot of times fucks people up. You talk to people struggling with mental health and you ask them some basic questions like, do you have a morning routine? Now, everyone has a morning routine. It's basically what they do every morning. But do you have a structured routine that's actually designed to bring you some peace of mind? They'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
True.
Right?
Good,
you start asking, hey, well, do you have actually a way to evaluate yourself about how well you did? Well, like let's say a factory worker, right? Just to keep this fair, right? And he's crying, he coming home crying every day about how his boss was riding his ass and this and that. Well, what are your standards? Like, what do you expect from yourself every day at work? Are you meeting your standards? Like, are you? How do you know? Do you evaluate yourself? Oh, do you have some sort of ritual for getting or a training routine for how to get better at your job? Because if you're not getting better, naturally, anything that's not growing is dying. So of course you feel like shit. If there's nothing in your life you're actually improving and getting better, you should feel like shit. You should actually be glad that your body works well enough to alert you that you feel like shit. You see what I'm saying? It's like if you eat a lot of bad food, your body lets you know we don't like that by making you feel like shit.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about mental illness like it's some problem. What happens when you drop your phone in water? It stops working. It worked. What happens when your gas light comes on in the car? Do you get mad at the gas light? No, it's telling you something. It's saying, get some gas or I'm going to stop working on your ass. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So, and I'm not downplaying mental health and all of that. But a lot of people just be throwing these labels and shit. It's like you should be feeling like shit. You ain't got no goals. You focus all about what other people think about you. You ain't got you have no standards for yourself. On top of that, you're not training and getting better at nothing. You complaining all the time. You know what I mean? You should feel like shit. So anyway, so your morning routines, right? Evening routine. You see all these things that we're setting up our life in such a way to survive and thrive in the jungle. And what do I mean by the jungle? The place where basically life. You know what I'm saying? Life is the jungle. People are going to talk shit about you. Things are going to happen that aren't fair. You're going to get unfairly scrutinized. You're going to get, that's life. So what we have to set up a system for our life that protects us against that, a lot of that, and allows us to thrive and puts things in our control. So now the referee is saying, did I win this morning? Did I do what the fuck I needed to do this morning? Fuck the game. Did I do the things that I needed to do this morning? When he goes to sleep at night, did you decide to fucking get a dozen donuts because you fucked the game up? Or are you going through your routine? Are you being disciplined and submitting to your routines? And if you have the routine, it's much easier to know that eating that dozen donuts goes against it. But if you have no routine, guess what people do? They just eat the donuts whenever shit goes bad. And guess what that turns into? Addictions.
Yep.
That's why people, that's when you start going to alcohol. But if you have a rule around alcohol, like, hey man, alcohol is only for special occasions. I'm not to do that during the week. Definitely not before game night. After games, one limit alcoholic drink. If you go and fuck around and take 5 shots after the bad game, at least you now know you just violated your own standard. And how should you feel when you just violated your own standard? You should feel like shit. Any athlete, like if you got a workout set and you don't do it, you should feel like shit. That's good. That's like your own standard saying, hey, I fucked up.
Yup.
You see what I'm saying? And we got this whole movement and shit, man. And the world is so soft, even with around kids and shit. People be trying to act like you can't discipline your kid. Nah, there's certain shit my kids do that I need to be upset with you. I need to let you know that I'm not pleased with what you did. I'm not going to act like I'm pleased with what you did. You need to know that. Because if I don't tell you, you'll think that what you did was okay. And then now that will become a part of your routine. Now mental illness is a part of people's routine. And then guess what they do? They go try to get pills to fix the problem. But that don't fix the problem.
It's a mask.
Because if it did fix the problem, then if the pills fix the problem, then we wouldn't have people so mentally sick. But why are people taking pills but still being mentally sick? Have you ever wondered that? I always thought that was fascinating. It's like,
yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
So that's a couple things. Now then, let me talk about some other elements that need to be added to your arsenal. What every referee needs to have,
Yes, sir.
right? Number one, you need to have some sort of accountability partner, right? Someone who's in the jungle with you, someone who you meet with consistently to problem solve and help each other get better at your craft. And you should have structured meetings set up at least weekly. That should be religious for you in the same way that you go to church every morning at 8 or every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. That's how you need to be with your accountability partner. What this is going to do is going to make you feel not alone, which is very important. It's very important to feel like somebody's invested in your journey with you. It's also going to give you that extra structure where they can give you that feedback and they can hold you accountable, which is really important because sometimes it's hard to keep yourself accountable at the level that's required for greatness.
Yep.
That's why anyone who has achieved greatness, they have a bunch of coaches and shit. Now, I'm not going to tell you, sign up for Killer Instinct necessarily, although you should, because some people be like, well, I can't afford to get a coach right now. Well, you don't need to get a coach. Just get your friend, another referee, and set up a structured system around accountability. The other thing that you need to have is you need to have a great friend that it's understood that you can call them and you can vent and you can express your feelings. And you can get this shit out. That's very important. Again, I'm going to say get a therapist as well. But some people say, well, I don't have insurance or I can't get a therapist. That's fine. Get a friend. You got a friend. You got your mom. You can tell your mom, hey, mom, I'm going to call you once a week. And here's what to do. Just listen to me, ask me questions, but just don't judge me, okay? Now, your accountability partner can judge you, all right? But that's why I said have a friend.
Yeah, I
a
like
friend
that,
who
man.
you can call up and you like, hey, man, I'm just talking my shit right now, and they understand. And they validate your emotions. That's very important. You know what I mean? Like you want someone to help validate your emotions. That also can come in the form of a therapist as well, a good therapist. Not all therapists are created equal. I got some friends who are better than a lot of therapists. My therapist is good, but not all therapists are good at everything. Some therapists can actually help more with certain things. So you just got to really evaluate precisely what you need. But that therapist could play that role if they're the right one, right? But a friend. What else, man? The other thing is this. This is big. A lot of people underestimate this as it relates to mental health. You need to get rid of things in your life that don't, how do I put this? Get rid of things in your life that don't contribute to your advancement. How about that? Okay. So things that do not contribute to your advancement, many times if you let them sit around, they'll start to fuck with you mentally and emotionally. Like sometimes, man, and I don't know how, sometimes, man, I'm very keen or very aware of my environment. Like I don't like shit around that don't need to be there. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes, man, I'll be in my house or something and I'll see something and I'm like, I don't like that that's there. I need to get rid of that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I'll go through my closet sometimes, man, and I'll see a shirt or something. I'm like, I don't like that shirt.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care why I bought it. I don't care when I bought it, but getting rid of it makes me happy. So I'm not just talking about shirts and pieces of furniture and shit. I'm talking about people and relationships. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes we settle for people and relationships that we know are not advancing us. So if they're not advancing us, that means they're stealing from us. And if you are allowing that person to stay in your life, that's on you 100%. So hopefully, never mind, hopefully. I don't know what that means for you. That might mean there'll be some divorces that happen. It might mean that, some people you grew up with is going to be mad at you. You're not going to be friends with them no more. That's on you to decide. But if you are keeping those people around and you claim you got mental health problems, that's on you. You know what I'm saying? Like you need to get rid of them. And yeah, it's going to hurt, but it's going to feel a lot better once you feel better about them not being there. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I promise you, you'll feel a lot better. You will. I'm telling you that. You're going to feel a lot better. And it will be hard because you're separating yourself from something, right? But that might mean leaving a job, you know what I mean? Or getting rid of a business partner or moving away from where you grew up. Make sense? Like sometimes we feel this obligation to do things based on how things were. And that fucks with our mental health. So all of those things, man, are real foundational things. Now, there's a few things on top of this, a few habits, let's say, that I think every person, especially a referee, should incorporate they should be doing consistently. One is what you may understand as mindfulness. Okay. So I struggle with the word because I could say meditation, visualization is like, oh, what's the difference? Whatever. I'm gonna explain what I mean by mindfulness. Every referee should be multiple times a day, but especially before games and after, should be checking in and doing a body scan of what's going on physically, becoming aware of what's happening in their body. So I'll give you a very simple way to do it. My therapist taught me
Love it.
this.
Yep.
Very simple.
Yeah, go.
You just start from the top of your head and you just check. Just go down, just inventory, top of your head all the way to the bottom, and just check for any tenseness or tightness or, anything like that. So let's say, for example, you start doing this, you'll get to your jaw and realize, oh shit, my jaws is tight. I didn't even realize it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You get to your shoulders and you'll notice you're tight. By the way, becoming aware of where you keep the tightness and the tension, naturally you start doing this over and over, you'll be able to release it much easier.
Yep.
But a lot of our mental and emotional ailments come from us holding tension, literally holding tension. We're not relaxed, and we're rarely relaxed.
Yeah.
A lot of us sleep and are not even relaxed. You see what I'm saying?
True.
So this has taken my life, the quality of my life, to the next level, because I can tell when I'm starting to get tight, and I hold tightness in my hamstrings or this, and I can release tension. And then, so for example, what would happen if let's just say 30 seconds out of every minute you were like you flexed every muscle in your body? What would happen? Over time, you would get really tired. Why? Because it takes energy to get tense, right? That's why after a football game, I would go to happy hour with my friends, and I would get like 6 things off the happy hour and eat the whole shit. Because in a football game, you're literally like, you're running up to somebody, tense, and then resting, tense, yeah. You get exhausted, man. So the reality is most of us are doing that all day. Referee is in a game, Draymond's talking shit, they start tightening up. You see what I'm saying? But what would happen if that referee just knew how to calm their body down? But you can't learn how to calm it down before you start practicing mindfulness and being aware of just what's happening in your body.
True.
And then when you start practicing this, you'll be like, oh, I notice I keep a lot of tightness in my chest when I get anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I notice that when I'm stressed out or when I'm angry, my hamstrings start flaring up.
Yep.
Or my hip flexors, right? And then you can start doing some targeted other things, but mindfulness every single day. I now do it 5 times a day on schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Do a quick body scan, takes me like 4 or 5 minutes. So that's something. And again, I won't overwhelm people because I know you just said give me a few things. I don't even remember what the question was originally, but this is like this is a lifestyle, man, and this is what I teach. This is not about no little tool. This is not about no little fucking visualization tool or whatever. You need to be approaching your shit with a sense of precision, with being deliberate, designing your life in such a way to allow you to be the king of your respective jungle. You see what I'm saying? Designing your whole lifestyle around that. Having full control. Someone who has full control over their environment, over themselves, do they feel sad? No, you feel good when you have control. People who struggle with mental illness don't feel like they have control. Am I right?
Yeah, that's a fact.
Now, who actually has control? Control is an illusion. So guess what you can do? Create the illusion of control. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not create the illusion. And same thing with people who are depressed. It's an illusion that you have no control. Nobody's really in control of shit when you really want to think about it like that. But what we can do is we can affect our environments. We can take control of shit, and it starts in our mind. And so anyway, yeah.
Yeah, nah, man. You unloaded a lot there, which I'm really grateful for, man, because we only have so much time, and I'm glad that you were able to get out so much value for people to draw upon. So thank you for that, man. Man, I had like 50 billion questions and things come through as you were going, man. And I've got a whole lot more here, but I'm not gonna do it to you, man, because I want to be respectful of your time. But thank you so much, man. That was sensational, the information. I do have a finishing segment that I generally do on my podcast that I'll do to wrap up if that's okay. It shouldn't take too long. So it's I'm turning on the shot clock, right? So you got 24 seconds. And I've got a few questions here, about 5 or 6 questions that's just, you don't have to use the whole 24, but just simple questions just to get some information there. So ready to go?
Yep.
All right. So this first one's a little bit loaded. So we'll see what happens. The biggest value, a big turning point for me during Killer Instinct was the scouting report. Because, and you've mentioned it a lot today about knowing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
My question for you is, what are the most important things every ambitious athlete, referee, human, whatever, must learn and know about themselves that is too often neglected or unknown, unclear?
Ooh,
it's loaded, so yeah, see how you go.
Heavy. I might get a 24-second shot clock violation.
Yeah.
Nah, all right. Let me. I'm gonna get us the time it deserves, man. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's turn off the shot clock.
Yeah, I mean, if that's cool, man.
Yeah. So all right. So the first thing is, and I'm gonna try to think of some ones that are neglected, but I think all of these are kind of neglected. Just what you got to know what your vision is for your life, your vision of perfection.
Mm.
So a lot of people think they know what their vision is, but it's just like this vague idea. But no, I mean your vision of perfection. So when you heard Kobe Bryant talked about this in an interview, he said he started out with like how he wanted his game to look, what would make him the most unstoppable. So that is literally like, I mean, everything from moves to like what you can do. That's a breakdown of perfection in terms of your game. Not saying, I just want to be a great basketball player. It's like, nah, what would make your game the most unstoppable? Because then he could work back from there. So that's a big part of everyone's scouting report, is understanding what it is that you want to be, man. Like what your vision of perfection is. And we'll say even just for your craft, right? Yep. But that also needs to be true for everything else as well. Let me give you one more that I think, another piece. I would say so this is a big part, man, is just what the needs and fears. I don't know if you remember that part in Killer Instinct.
Absolutely, I do.
Understanding, and we'll start with the fears, man. What are the fears? What are you most afraid to feel so much that most of the things that you do in life are designed to avoid feeling that thing, right? Because this doesn't change. This is just how you are. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you just need to understand what it is, you know what I'm saying? So that you can set your life up in a way to optimize. So for example, if you're a mouse, you just naturally afraid of cats, man, because cats kill mice. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that ain't going to change. So you got to figure that out for yourself, right? Like what some people are wildly afraid of rejection, mm-hmm. right? Now, that doesn't mean their whole life needs to be dominated by that, but they need to figure out a way to reframe rejection, like do something, because you ain't about to stop being afraid of rejection just by just saying that, right? Some people are afraid of feeling helpless, or vulnerable or whatever else. Understand what you're most afraid of feeling, mm-hmm. because that's going to expose a lot about why you do what you do. And that can put you in a position of power to start to change a lot of your habits and restructure them accordingly.
Yep. And I mean, you can't even do anything about it until you have the awareness anyway. So exactly. I think that's a good point there, man. All right, well, let's flick back on this shot clock, man. Yeah. Thank you for taking the extra time with that one, though. I think that was important. Niyi, I actually, for this one, man, I want you, if okay with you, I want you to turn around. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to select any book off your bookshelf and show us what it is and tell us something about it.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. All right. Shit, man. Ooh, this is a good one. This is Michael Johnson, Slaying the Dragon.
Ooh.
All right. This to me is the best book written by an athlete. in my opinion, and it's a must read for any competitor.
Right.
So Michael Johnson is a world-class sprinter, Olympian, and in this book, Slaying the Dragon, man, not only does he detail his philosophy towards greatness, but specifically his philosophy towards failure. And it's not just some little something he pulled out of his ass, man. It's something he learned through actually experiencing big time failure, like choking in the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? Like imagine having one opportunity to prove yourself, and if you fail, you got to wait 4 years. And waiting 4 years in a sport like his oftentimes means you're out of there, bro. Like you just ain't got it no more. You're a sprinter.
Yeah.
So he had a really tough outing, you know, in the Olympics, and then came back 4 years later, man, just crushed it in Atlanta. Remember the gold spikes and all of that. But his philosophy, man, is so simple, so practical, just beautifully articulated. And I just learned so much from it, man. And it's all about facing your fears. You got to face them before they even happen. You know what I mean? Like you got to imagine that you lost. It's very similar to a samurai mindset, which is why I love the book Hagakure, man. Where it's like you gotta imagine that you already dead, man. You gotta assume the worst, experience that, and come to grips with it, because then that makes you bulletproof moving forward. Now you're not as scared. That now the fear doesn't grip you. You see what I'm saying? So yeah.
Love it, man. Love it. Now, knowing what you know now, this is a bit of a cliche question, but let's have it. Go back to a time when you were younger, pick a time, whatever. What advice would you give to your younger self based on where you are now?
Ooh. I would say this, man. That's a lot, but I'm gonna try to like just package it up, man. I would say, look, little man, all you need to be worried about is what pleases you. Listen to yourself. Pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to what you like to do, to what you don't like to do. Pay attention to your own standards and what pleases you. You know what I'm saying? Like, pay attention to what pleases you, because by doing that, you won't be as focused on others, because other people don't know. And other people, just like Jay-Z said, what you eat don't make me shit. You know what I'm saying? So,
True.
Like other people, they will have ideas for you, but they don't go to sleep with you every night. They don't look at you in the mirror every time. They don't see you when you look in the mirror. Like you're the one who sees you when you look in the mirror. You're with you all the time. So pay attention to what pleases you, and because that's how you figure out what type of animal that you are. You see what I'm saying? So if you're a polar bear, that's how you get to where you swimming around in that ice cold water, man, fucking up seals. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to be a polar bear, you know, chilling as like acting like a house pet. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not what you designed to be. So listen to yourself. That's what I would tell him.
Love that, man.
That would change his life too.
I love that. Now, can I just clarify one thing real quick? When you were released from the NFL, or that career, that part of you finished up, was that due to injury?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you, man. If I could erase that injury, but in doing that, it erases the butterfly effect of everything that happened afterwards.
Okay.
So every friend that you met, every learning that you gained from that experience. Maybe you never created I'm Not You. Maybe you created it 5 years later. Who knows? Maybe that was always in the plans for you. If I could erase that, and you could have had your full shot at your career in the NFL, would you take it?
Nah.
For sure,
that's just I never been a fan of that type of thinking. And I honestly, I can say this honestly, like I do not regret anything about my career. And it's not just because it ended due to injury. It's just I feel like it played its proper role in my life. And I still was able to make my dream a reality. And quite frankly, I don't wish I would have spent 10 years doing what I did to my body and playing football, man. Maybe if I played a different sport, my answer might have been different. But football, man, I watch football and I'm like, damn, man, like I don't know how I was doing that shit.
Yeah.
You know, so So I feel very good about how things panned out, man. And yeah, I feel good about
that's good, man. Yeah, I presume that was your answer, but I like to
yeah. No,
even just to hammer that point home. Like things, traumatic events, bad things happen, and majority of the time you wouldn't take it back. You know what I mean? Like
right.
a lot of people would probably say, I got stronger from that. I got better from that. That led me to this, that, and the other. And if people can look at it in that way, it's like, oh, well, why am I giving so much power to this event still that I could be okay with?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
This is my final one, man. Final question. And it's a little bit deep, but we'll see what happens. So in the grand scheme of things, Niyi, what do you believe is the most significant question humanity needs to be asking itself?
Humanity. I think that, and this is just part of my philosophy, man, like there's no way that humanity collectively is going to ask themselves a question. It's really the individual person. So every person in humanity, I believe,
I like it.
The question they need to ask themselves is, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? I feel like if every person asked themselves that question and did so repeatedly, the world, just think of every person in the world operating according to what they were designed to be and do. That's a beautiful thing. That's like a machine, right? And every part of that machine is doing exactly what it needs to do. That's like a beautiful team. You think of the perfect NBA team, whether it's the 95 Bulls or, the 03 Lakers or some shit, or the Golden State Warriors. What was beautiful about those teams? It was like every person had a role and every person did what they were supposed to do as well as they could possibly do it. And that's what creates a beautiful team experience, and then ultimately winning a championship. If every person was operating according to what their purpose was, man, that would be a beautiful thing. I'm not gonna say we wouldn't have any problems, because I think that shouldn't even be the goal. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Just like with a team is not saying we're gonna try to win every single game this year and never make a mistake. Like, nah. We trying to win a championship. And yeah, we'll fuck around and lose. Maybe we won't, you know what I'm saying? If you're playing in the NFL, maybe we can go undefeated. But we'll lose. We'll have some injuries. Like, we'll be down in some games. But the question is, can we come back and win, and can we grow and evolve? Because our job here is to grow and evolve. It's not to be perfect or to have a world without problems. You know what I'm saying? Every problem, this is another habit that I would say every person should do. Take time every day to show and express genuine gratitude for every problem, challenge, and obstacle in your life, because it's only causing you to get better. In the same way that a weightlifter would be happy that for the weights that they put on. They don't look at a weightlifter doesn't look at the weights and be like, man, fuck you, weights. Like, why are you making my life so hard? No, a real weightlifter goes in there and puts on and adds on problems, and then tries to do that because he knows by doing that he gets stronger. So anyway, man, that's another little habit.
Ah, man, money in the bank right there, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Like, I know you took a big chunk of your time out to have this podcast with me. I'm so grateful. I don't know how to express anymore.
My pleasure,
but
man.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
yeah. Like, I can honestly say, man, being in your Killer Instinct group back in 2018, that in itself for me created a butterfly effect in my life that I just couldn't fathom, like, where I'd be at without it, man. I think it's made all the difference for me in my life, and you continue to inspire me every day with your podcast and with the content you put out and things like that. And I'm always like, I literally got my blueprints and everything. Like, I still got all that stuff, man, and I whip it out like routinely. And when I have people in my life that I care about and things, like, sometimes I'll reflect back on different things that you taught me and try to pass that on, or try and put them onto your podcast and things like that. So, man, Thank you so much. And I guess, what are you working on at the moment? Where can people find you? all that
Yeah.
stuff, you know?
Man, so I got a really I'm really excited about the system that I'm working on teaching right now. It's gonna be coming out next year, man. It's for the competitive entrepreneur. It's basically like a more focused version of Killer Instinct for the entrepreneurs. You know what I mean? So I'm really excited about that. But of course, man, Killer Instinct. You go to imnotyou.com/KI. That's how you can learn more about how to work with me and how to take on that killer instinct mentality and systemize all of the areas of your life. So imnotyou.com. You can find me on all the social medias, NIYISOBO across all the platforms. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to meeting you all, whether it's through my podcast. I got podcasts as well. Just search up Niyi Sobo in the search engines on all the platforms, and you'll see me there also.
Amazing. I always go out with gratitude, man. So what's one thing that you're most grateful for in your life right now? And then it's a wrap.
Yeah, I'm grateful for my health, man. I'm really grateful that I'm healthy. My body is healthy. I got the gift of life, man. I think that's another thing that we as people can kind of take for granted. Being dead would suck, you know what I'm saying? And it will suck, but we're alive right now. So let's take advantage of it. And I'm really grateful for that gift of life.
Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you gained something of value today. I'm putting a lot of work into this and there's more heat coming. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button. You won't miss it. Also, it doesn't cost a cent. It helps me a lot. Makes me feel good. I really appreciate it. Other than that, guys, chuck a comment down below if you have any questions at all or anything you want me to cover off in the future. And that's it.